Hey guys, welcome back to Live Life Simple. Today we're rehydrating our pumpkin Alfredo at the top of Berthoud Pass, right outside of Winter Park. Crazy kids are biking up this today. We're gonna try and make it to the top. And there's a weather station up there. That'll be a great place above the tree line to rehydrate. We'll have a beautiful view. It should be worth it. We'll see if we make it. Happy October, everyone. We are in the pumpkin season, so I think this month we're gonna do a couple of pumpkin related recipes. Today we're gonna do some pumpkin Alfredo. This is gonna be very similar to a fettuccine Alfredo that you're used to with a small pumpkin twist. This will be very quick to put together. It's gonna be a great freeze drying recipe and it's gonna be super easy to rehydrate. So let's get into the ingredients. Surprisingly, not a lot of ingredients to this recipe. We're gonna need some linguine or fettuccine noodles. I'm gonna use a couple of pounds. We're gonna need some Parmesan cheese, of course. I'm gonna replace the butter for some oat milk, or you can use, you could actually use heavy cream or something like that. Your long-term storage may not be as long. You can adapt this recipe for many different ways. Today, I'm gonna try and eliminate all of my butter and high-fat creams and things with some oat milk. You're gonna need some pureed pumpkin, of course. You can use stuff that you have pureed yourself, or you can do the pureed in a can like this. And then for our spices, we're gonna need a bouillon cube, some minced garlic, a little parsley, and also a little nutmeg, and that's it. And then if you want to make this a chicken Alfredo, you can just dice and cook some chicken, and then you can freeze dry that separate, or you can add it into the sauce. And before we get our sauce going, I'm just gonna start with my noodles. I'm using linguine noodles, and I'm gonna do 2 pounds of linguine noodles. I'm gonna see where that gets me. Everyone kind of has a preference on their ratio of noodles to sauce mixture, so I don't really like a ton of noodles. I would rather have more sauce. So I'm gonna start with 2 pounds. I'm going in the small today, so that's gonna be about 20 cups of total product. You can adjust this to however you need to for your size freeze dryer. And for the sauce, I'm gonna replace what would normally be butter with 1 cup of broth. And depending on what you're doing with your Alfredo, if you're doing a chicken Alfredo, it'd probably make sense to do chicken broth. Otherwise, you can do a vegetable broth or something like that. And then we wanna add 6 cloves of minced garlic to this. And then for our half and half or a whipping cream replacement, I like to use oat milk because you can see it's very thick like whipping cream is. So we're gonna do 2 cups of that, and we're gonna add that to our sauce. And then 1.5 cups of Parmesan, which equals out to a 6-ounce package of cheese. And then 3 cups of pumpkin puree. And that's gonna be 2 15-ounce cans of pumpkin puree. You're gonna cook all of this over medium heat. The last thing we need in here is 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. You're gonna stir all of it together, and then you just want a thick consistency, and you want all of your cheese to be melted. It seems to be pretty thick, and you can always change that when you go to rehydrate. So our pasta noodles should be done now. And we're just gonna drain these off. I like to rinse them. Once you have your noodles rinsed, just put that back into this big pot because we're gonna add our sauce into here. We're gonna coat everything, and then we're gonna cook it just a little bit longer. So once this sauce is nice and creamy and all your cheese is melted, just pour it directly over this pasta. We're gonna toss it a little bit just to make sure it's evenly coated. We're gonna cook this for probably 1 or 2 minutes just to make sure everything is fully coated and fully melted. And that sauce is super, super thick and creamy. It's almost like a macaroni and cheese, really. I'm gonna give this a taste test, I think, before it goes into the freeze dryer. And that sauce is really creamy, really thick, really good. And since we're not using butter in this, I think if you were missing that kind of buttery taste, I really think if you just added some salt, that would replace a lot of the butter taste. I'm gonna pre-freeze today's recipe. I'm using pre-cut parchment and silicone both under the pasta today, just so it doesn't stick to the pan. I think some tongs will be very helpful in assisting with loading these trays up. Well, I ended up with about 3.5, maybe a little under 3.5 trays in the small. If you're making this in the small, I would probably add another 1/2 pound of noodles. I think that would get you the rest of the way there. There's definitely plenty of sauce to add the extra noodles. You could even go up to another 1 pound of noodles, depending on what kind of noodles you're using. I'm using linguine, so if you had fettuccine noodles, those are a little thicker. You might actually get it a little bit farther. So somewhere in between 2 and 3 pounds of noodles would get you there. So I use the dividers in 4 portion setting. I think that gives you a nice serving size. They also do a great job of cutting through the noodles, so you don't need to actually cut the noodles. When we pull these out of the freeze dryer, they're gonna come out in beautiful serving size little portions that we can just stick them in a bag and they're ready to go. And I almost forgot that this needs to be topped with a little parsley. You can do that at this point, or you can actually just mix it into the mix. I think this recipe would benefit quite a bit by some pre-freezing, so we're gonna do that right now. And then I'll see you tomorrow and we'll go in the freeze dryer. All right, we're now gonna add our 3.5 trays of pumpkin Alfredo that's frozen into the freeze dryer. If you like the content that we're putting out there, let us know, give us a thumbs up. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm, helps these videos get to freeze dryers and people that want to see freeze drying recipes. And if you haven't already, please take a moment and subscribe to the channel Live Life Simple. We do mostly freeze drying on this channel. If you're curious about freeze drying, you have questions about freeze drying, feel free to join our Facebook or our MeWe social media groups. And you can use the search function, magnifying glass. It's found kind of mid-page on that front page. And you can search keywords and topics and old threads and members and all kinds of different stuff and get your questions answered on there. And that can be found at Retired at 40's freeze drying group on Facebook or MeWe. This recipe, as well as more than 300 other recipes, can be found at the freezedryingcookbook.com. That is updated almost daily with new recipes. You can also find all of the green freeze drying accessories in this video and other videos at freezedryingsupplies.com. Today we're using Harvest Right freeze dryers. I've been using Harvest Right freeze dryers for over 6 years now. If you're in the market to purchase a freeze dryer, just please consider using our affiliate link. That helps us produce this YouTube content. It helps us develop new products. It helps us do giveaways and all kinds of stuff for the freeze drying community. So if you're enjoying this video, that is all thanks to previous freeze dryers who have used that affiliate link. And it looks like the freeze-dried pumpkin Alfredo is underway, and we'll see you in a second. 34 hours on the Alfredo. And that has a really nice color to it. Everything turned out really great. We're gonna be able to make some nice portion sizes because of the dividers. It's gonna put them into a nice cube for a serving. I think I'll do 2 per bag. That'll make a big portion for one person that's hungry, or it could feed 2 people. I'm gonna put an oxygen absorber in there. We'll seal it up in the Avid Armor, and we'll be ready to rehydrate. We made it to the top. We have our pumpkin Alfredo. We're just gonna add a little bit of water right into the bag. So we ended up using about 16 ounces of hot water for 2 of those portions and let it sit for about 3 to 5 minutes, and it looks absolutely perfect. It looks the exact same way as when we put it in there. You just have to be careful not to break up the noodles too much, but let's give it a shot. Another perfect rehydration, this time at 12,000 feet. Remember to live life simple. We'll catch you next week.